Hello to each of you in your respected places. I hope that you are doing better than well in all ways possible. I am welcoming each and every one of you to another segment of Conversations in the Nick of Time. On this platform, we explore everything leadership, excellence, accidents, and equity. I am your host, Nikki Roach, and it's always a joy to be with you. I want to also take the time to thank our sponsors, Sparkman Publications, thank you for your continued support. KSTL Jubilee 690 AM, headquartered in St. Louis, Missouri, at least the station is. The actual mother company is up in the East Coast. And then I also want to thank Covenant Exchange for the vision, for the continued support, and the resources that go behind making this happen every week. We're just most grateful. And then I'm sure many of you who have been following for the last year or two have identified we've bumped things up a little bit. So I want to thank also some of our new producers and videographers and also photographers. You will hear more about them at a later time. But today we're excited about this topic. It's so relevant. Our guest is absolutely phenomenal, and I've met her in the most amazing way, which proves true to part of the topic that we're talking about. And it's this evolution of what we're seeing in the workplace, in the marketplace, and amongst the workforce. It is very interesting how things are changing so rapidly. I believe these changes, in my own opinion, were taking place pre-pandemic, but the pandemic just caused us to have to deal with it right there on the spot, not putting it off, not delaying it. So to frame our conversation for today, I just wanted to kind of course, as you know, throw out some data and some statistics, but also just to let you know that the workforce has never been as varied and diverse as it is today. Never. Currently, you will not only find full-time and part-time employees, but you will also find employee statuses such as freelance, gig, crowdsourced, seasonal, international, and that's just to name a few. And to top it all off, for the first time in history, side by side, you will find working individuals, or can find individuals from 5 different generations, because one, the traditionalists are not retiring as fast as we thought they would. And then now we've got the traditionalists, the baby boomer, the Gen X, the Gen Y, Gen Z, and Gen Y, all working side by side. And not only are they working side by side, but they're all over the globe in different time zones with different demands and expectations. And these new approaches are quickly changing the shape of the workplace, the workforce, the marketplace, and redefining what teaming looks like and shows up, while challenging human resource practitioners to step up and do their jobs in excellence, but figuring out how to play this new game. Well, I am most excited to have in face-to-face this time. It's still virtual, but it's face-to-face for us. We had the opportunity to connect via LinkedIn. And this is why I fuss at everybody who says, I'm not on it. I'm like, you've got to be on it. There's so many amazing people. And today proves that to be oh so true. Her name is Necole. I'm not even saying I'm going to be funny acting because she has a beautiful name. But Necole Jones has over 20 years of human resource management experience in a myriad of Fortune 500 and international organizations. Currently, she serves as the People Partner HR Director for Webhelp, which is a consultancy firm based in Paris, France. Yes, Paris, France is where her company is headquartered. And she has the responsibility for every aspect of the employee life cycle, supporting the workforce in the global footprint of the United States, the United Kingdom, Virgin Islands, Singapore, Switzerland, Dubai, India, and Australia. So she's doing the thing, right? Worldwide. Her experience in talent development, compensation, employee relations, and succession planning is undergirded with training as a mediator and certifications as a certified professional by the Society of Human Resource Management and certified diversity sourcing professional. Through the Human Resource Certification Institute, Necole has obtained in the Senior Human Resource Professional Credential in 2009 and Global Human Resource Professional Certification in 2021. So I'm going through all this, and I usually will skim through some, but I need individuals to understand the sister is credentialed. Not just experienced, but also credentialed. And I love that. I'm an advocate of continuous education, but it also goes to prove about a topic we'll touch on a little bit in regards to diversity in this space and expectations. Necole is a sought after speaker and has won numerous awards for her tangible impact on the workplace. She leverages her professional experience for community endeavors and philanthropic efforts in several advisory roles. Necole attended the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, graduating with a Bachelor of Science in Political Science, Public Administration. She also is a woman of faith and spent 30 years working behind the mega ministry of her now resting parents. And I just want to say, Necole Jones, you are absolutely phenomenal. How are you?
I am fine, and thank you for that warm introduction. I think it's always, sometimes awkward when you hear all these accolades about yourself, and then you're like, oh, I did that. So thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here on your platform.
Yes, so we had the chance to connect because we had so many things in common on via LinkedIn, and we connected. And so I've made it a habit to responding to individuals and not just saying, yes, let's connect, but taking a glance at the profile. And so I followed up. I'm like, oh my gosh, let's connect, because we had so many things that intersected, and there were points of interest that we both had, not knowing we were both PKs, right?
Yes.
So that's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother show. You can invite me back. I'm inviting myself back. No, I'm just kidding.
Now, you are serving individuals all across the globe. I just want to jump in right there. Like, what is that experience like for you as an individual, but also as a woman of color?
Right. So great question. So I've been in HR for about 20 years. I would say probably the last 15 years, which is pretty much the majority of my career, I've had some aspect of global experience where I've supported employees in different, countries. Currently, I kind of oversee all of the North American operations, strategic HR initiatives, but I have many counterparts that reside in other countries. And so I'm supporting them, from a different leadership perspective. With the various countries, you kind of understand how to convert time zones. So there's been opportunities and times where I am on very early morning calls. I think the earliest I've ever done a work call was 3:30, 4 a.m. In the morning, my time zone, but that was in South Africa, so it was a normal time zone for them. Or there's a 6-hour time difference from the UK. So a lot of early mornings, but it gives me opportunity to have my afternoons clear. The other things you have to kind of think about just beyond the time zone constraints are the different cultural personalities. And the way that we do business or operate in other countries is different than how we manage in the U.S. And so also as well, thinking from the employment law perspective. So I always say, dot your I's, cross your T's to figure out how you're going to navigate whatever employment issue or problem that is presented to you.
And that's interesting that you bring that up, because whether you're an HR practitioner or even an entrepreneur, when we talk about engaging individuals outside of mainland, it is, and stateside, it's interesting how we cannot be so arrogant in our approach that our way is right.
Right.
When we step outside of these boundaries.
Yeah, I always say you need to learn how to read the room.
Okay.
And so emotional intelligence is very key. to understand what is presented in front of you, who are the people, the dynamics in the room, who are the players, and figuring out who's making the decisions. Because sometimes it's not the senior leader. There might be an influencer on the team. And so you have to figure that out. And so there's a psychology to all of this, and determining what direction you need to go in.
That's interesting. You bring it up, the psychology of it. What does preparation for such an opportunity, what does that look like? Because I know you hit on something that I am very, very passionate about. The fact that you can have influencers, meaning those who have the power, not always the monetary power, but they have the decision making power. But so we think.
Right.
So there's influencers, but there's the influencers, as you say. Right. And that is two different things. And the influencer is the person you want to actually get acquainted with.
Correct. It's I would say being strategic. It's almost like playing a game of chess or checkers. So knowing your strategy, determining your next move, related to my career, so to speak. I didn't plan in going into HR. HR found me. Okay. I originally planned on going to law school. So I was a political science major. I studied courses about the government, lobbying, all these great things, but I never applied for law school at the time. And so I landed in HR, and because I really didn't have, I would consider like that business background, that's where I got into the world of make sure you have your credentials, because even before you get to the room, your credentials are going to speak for themselves.
True.
So 2003 was when I obtained my first HR credential, and that was the Professional and Human Resources certification issued by the Human Resources Certification Institute. And so from there, I advanced from the PHR to the SPHR in 2009, which is the Senior Professional and Human Resources certification. And then in 2015, I obtained my SHRM Senior Certified Professional certification. And then just last year, I obtained my Global Professional and Human Resources certification. And only about 2% of certificate holders hold that certification. So I am the creme de la creme. No,
own it.
So yeah, I'm gonna own it. So I have these certifications, but you have to be able to speak to know, what you know. You just can't have the letters. You have to be able to articulate it, problem solve, be able to challenge management and leadership when appropriate. And my philosophy in working with managers and employees is helping them color within the lines. So as long as we're within the lines, we're good. However, when you begin to encroach on those lines or get outside of the lines, then I have to take a step back and then be able to convey to that employee or the leader the repercussions related to, if you do X, Y, and Z, this is going to happen, or this is the liability that you're going to incur. Or maybe you didn't think, intend for this to look this way, but this is how it appears. And so based on these, protected classes, race, sex, religion, etc., you're probably going to get an EEOC charge here, or there could be a lawsuit here. And so I'm there to help, companies, managers, employees navigate that and make sure that we do it correctly from a compliance perspective.
And how are you navigating and making sure that you remain relevant because things move so fast when we're talking about, as long as they color within the lines? Well, how do you even know what the lines are?
Well, I try to make sure that I'm always abreast of what the company policies are. Additionally, you have to look at past precedents. Okay. So if there were other employees treated XYZ, okay, that creates a pattern. And so those patterns can come back to hurt you, hunt you, or become some type of claim against the company if these practices are put in place.
Okay.
So for instance, you have a policy, I'll give a quick example. You have a policy on attendance and you say that you're going to write everyone up if they're more than 10 minutes late. But if your practice is you only write people up 20 minutes late or 30 minutes late, then when that person comes in and says, well, they wrote me up at 10 minutes late, yeah, that's the policy. However, your practice is different from your policy. You have to look at all those different factors. You also need to stay abreast of what, the federal legislation is. Also, states have different laws. And so whether or not that's on wage and hour, attendance, whatever employment practices, you have to think about those things.
That's a whole lot going on at one time.
Yes.
Then not only are you navigating all that, I want to go back to the credentials. I applaud you for finding something within yourself to not stop and not settle, but to keep going, even to join this 2%er group, which I'm like amazed because it's like these little pockets and these worlds within the world.
Right.
And who knew there was, a group such as this. Those of us who are not in like officially in HR.
Right.
But in that, what made you, because we're walking through this, our time together, kind of like a personal, but also, and as an advisor is kind of like the theme that we have going here. So
Right.
on the personal side, if we hop on that side, what is it that caused you to say, I need to go back to get more for myself, credential?
Okay. So I'm a woman of faith. I grew up in the church. My parents were pastor and first lady of a church where they grew it from 250 people to over 5,000 members. Under their realm, constructed an $8.3 million edifice in 2014. So I've been working behind the scenes with mom and dad for many, many years, and they have now gone on and not, no longer here with us. But part of that, being a woman of faith and a believer in Jesus Christ, he commands excellence. So I try to operate in that realm, to do more, to educate myself more. And even growing up, my mom was very honest with me. She says, you're super smart, you're super talented. But sometimes when people see you, they're going to see a woman and they're going to see a Black woman. Okay. So it means I have to work extra harder, in my mind, to make sure that I understand and show, my capabilities, my qualifications, and be able to execute that. So I would say probably from college on, in settings, I'm often the only person in the room that looks like me or one of the few. Okay. And so just even navigating that, to, be there in that space, I want to make sure that I'm representing.
Right. And what's interesting is that we don't always think that human resource practitioners go through the things that they are making sure are in alignment. It's a very awkward dynamic. And then their expectations are sometimes different, or the spotlight's on you even that much more brighter than it would be on individuals who are just a part of the staff or like a special committee or something like that for that organization or institution. But those who are serving, we never like think about like, what's their take on this? And so that's why I was thank you for giving us a big picture of how this was something that you were groomed for, right. And level of excellence. High five. However, at the same time, understanding like we needed to be tooled, with both sides of these things, meaning credentials, but also experience and expertise, smartness, the knowledge, the know-how. Do you feel at any point that, like, especially now having been in so many areas of the world, and your footprint even growing larger, do you feel pressured at all as a woman and then a woman of color in such a high profile level?
I think for me, I always need to be able to perform.
Okay.
And be able to excel no matter the situation. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the analogy or story. You can take a hard carrot, put it in water, it gets soft. You can take an egg, which is soft on the inside, put it in boiling water, it becomes hard. And then you take coffee and put it in the same water, it changes the character of the water. And so I tend to be like that coffee. I want to change the character of the water. Any room that I walk in, I want to be able to change the situation. I often say, and I've said it in interviews and topics and things, I'm an HR MacGyver. So you put me in every situation, I'm going to figure out how to get out. I'm going to evaluate the policy, the procedure. I'm going to look at the timeline, determine if we need to make the decision now. Can we delay it? What's the past precedence? So all of these things I'm navigating, like we're in the matrix.
Right.
Now how to get out or what's the best decision, and being able to own that decision. Because a lot of times you have leaders that make decisions, but then when the hammer falls, I didn't make that decision.
Right.
So you have to own the decision, whatever decision you choose to make.
Yeah. And speaking of decisions and choosing, I want to shift us just a little bit and get us in this space of the applicants, individual. And I know you have a personal story in regards to how you ended up in the space that you're in, the ability to control the narrative around what your expectations were in regards to a role, and your level of intentionality around the process you shared was so fascinating to me. And I think it's something that we fail to do. A lot of times we want a job, or we know the industry that we want to land in. Like, okay, I want to be a radio host. Okay, well, who's your target audience? What is a perfect schedule for you? Are you only going to be doing, like, there's so many questions that go on behind the scenes. And you had shared once you're where you are now, there was strategy. Unpack that strategy, because there were some lessons I even took away from you regarding that.
So, for me, I, wanted to stay in HR. And part of it, over the course of my career, I've been exposed to, I would say, aspects of remote work. So since
pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic.
Okay.
So 2006 was, kind of my first introduction of being able to work remote some. I was more in a field-based position, but I might work from home 2 to 3 days a week, or if the weather was bad and there was snow and ice on the road, work from home because you're not traveling. And I remember, quick story, my grandmother had just gotten out of the hospital. My parents were out of town, and she was at the house with me. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing work and, in meetings and various things. And then when I get out of the meeting, she says, your computer was talking to you. And it was so exciting to her to see me working remote. My grandmother is born in 1931, so she turned 90 last year.
Oh my God.
So in her lifetime, she's seen very rapid changes in technology. When she was growing up, and she's told me this story, her father used to say the radio is going to have pictures one day. And that was the invention of television. And them actually having televisions in their homes. And so for her to see me and hear me talking to a computer and doing work was super fascinating to her. So fast forward, moving through the years, I've had aspects of remote work. And I remember, talking with my mom before she passed, saying I wanted to be 100% remote. And being able to have that flexibility to work and travel and have that business and pleasure mixed together were things and aspects that I wanted. And so ironically, I was very intentional in trying to make my next move. In the midst of all of this, my mom suddenly passed June of 2020. And I had the opportunity to, take a severance from my current company at the time, or stay and move into a new role with a new manager. And I just decided it was time for me to leave. Additionally, with that, taking on the responsibilities of my mom's estate and me being the oldest child and doing all of that, that was going to be a whole job. So I was going to do that and then find my next role and opportunity at the same time. So I came across, my current role and position. I said, let me apply. And it intrigued me, like the company's based in Paris, France. And I'm like, wow. And, I get my first interview. The individual was based in Barcelona, Spain. And so all of this, so that
so
went.
How did you find this position though?
It was on LinkedIn. So I got my job via LinkedIn. And so if you're not on LinkedIn, I will say get on LinkedIn, and there's a power of being LinkedIn. So from LinkedIn, I've gotten jobs. I've had the opportunity to meet you. I've had interviews with other, hosts on their shows. I've gotten requested to do surveys and give my insights. And these surveys are sometimes paying $300. So we're not talking about $10 surveys. And I'm just giving my subject matter expertise. I've had the opportunity to be contacted, do you mind giving input on my book, or giving information relative to this article that we're going to present? And all of it's around my subject matter expertise, again, which I didn't originally plan on going to HR, but I made myself a subject matter expert so that at the end of the day, you can't tell me I don't know HR. So all of that was part of intentionality for me, from the certifications to the remote role. And I had an opportunity for another role that was going to pay $50,000 more. That was just in the base salary. They were also going to give me over $200,000 in stock equity. As well, and all of this. And so that got presented at the same time that, I had my current, opportunity that I ended up taking. And the headhunter, because it was through a headhunter, he contacted me and he was like, they want to make you an offer. They've expedited you through the process. Your interview was great. They don't want to wait, because they also knew I had competing offers and other things that were happening at the same time. So those competing offers gave me leverage to be able to negotiate somewhat, against each other. And the headhunter for this particular role, he was like, are you going to make a decision today? And I was like, no, let me think about it. And I was headed out of town for another trip. And I said, well, let me get back with you by Tuesday. And I believe this was maybe like a Wednesday or Thursday originally when he contacted me. And so at any rate, I think by Friday, he had called back with even more money, even more stock options, and a sign-on bonus. And I was like, wow, this is very, very nice. But I told him, I said, for me, it's not all about money. And he just kind of stopped.
Because that's not just that's not a couple thousand. That's a whole, that could be somebody else's salary. And that's, again, it's just on the base. That's just base.
That's on the base.
Because, people are, I think, now understanding total compensation package is something different.
Yeah, so the total compensation overall was great. But for me, I had to make a decision. And so I told him, I said, I'm talking with my personal board of directors. And he's like, who? I said, my personal board of directors. And I said, these are, some close family, friends, some individuals within the HR space. And I have about 5 that I kind of run decisions by separately to get their take and their opinion on it. And they're concerned about me. So they're going to give me the best advice that they think is going to, work best for Necole. And I listen to them, and I consider that when I'm making, decisions. So I talked with a few people, and some of them said, "Oh, yeah, take the money, girl, take the money." Others are like, "No, you've been talking about remote," because I've had talked about remote with not only my mom, but some of my friends and those, this person board of directors. They said, "You've been talking about remote for 10 years, and you wanted 100% remote." So all of that, I considered that, but then I also did the analysis. So I took the salary, that the $50,000 extra. I said, "Oh, this is going to change the tax bracket." So then you have more taxes. Also, the position was based in another state that had a state income tax. Tennessee doesn't. This position had the state had a state income tax. So what you're offering me is really not what you're offering me, because there's a state income tax associated with that. Additionally, it was close by, but it was like 15 minutes one way. So that means that's 30 minutes a day. I got to do that 5 days a week. That's 2.5 hours. I got to be in a car. Oh, then you want me to put clothes on? Working remote, I can put a cute shirt on and have on pajama bottoms. Yeah. But now I got to put a whole outfit on. So that's cleaning bill, that's extra washing, this, that, and the other. So I did all these little analysis or whatever. And so for me, it was only a $6,000 difference on the base salary when you kind of took those pluses and minuses and different things.
Wait a minute. So you walked through and took that extra, what would have been extra on top of the base salary, and the increase, I should say. And you went through and deducted all of those amounts and came down, it would really just be a $6,000 difference
for me to go into office.
My God.
I told the manager, the head hunter, I said, 6,000 is not enough for me to go into.
I know he was probably on the floor like, this is craziness when he finished talking to you.
Yes, but he said, "Thank you for, the input." And then also on the stock equity, which is, something that I knew, but then I kind of further analyzed it. When the stock was going to invest a 25% each year. So that meant it would take 4 years for me to obtain all that initial stock equity. When it vests, it becomes income. So then I was going to be taxed on that as well. He's like, "Wow, you have really broken this thing."
That's what I'm saying. Like, all we're doing is, look, this is how much I currently pay. This is how much I currently make. Here are the benefits that I have. And we really don't go into the detail of the benefits. We need to actually own, and we're not in a position to where we have to lean in and yield to whatever is offered. We need to be educated on what's offered. What you walk through, be intentional. Don't chase the money. Know what you want, because you had some non-negotiables. And you did not bend on that. Right. Having a personal board of directors to offer some wisdom. How many times do we get excited about something, but we don't see all that is in front of us, and do the homework.
Yes, you have to do the work, because it's about you.
Yeah, that is crazy. So then you end up with what you wanted because you took the other offer instead.
Yes, I did. And I was honest with the headhunter. I said, "Thank you so much." They offered more money. They were going to fast track me to VP status within, I'm going to say 12 to 18 months. Okay. They even put working remote, 2 or 3 days a week, but I was still going to have to go into the office the other days. Yeah. And so it just wasn't for me at that time.
Gotcha.
And so for me, I had to go with my heart. And this was the role that I needed to take. Mm-hmm. And I knew why I needed to take it. And because of working remote, I'm able to travel and work at the same time. I just got back from Hawaii. Now, I actually did take vacation for those days, but I was in Dallas, I was in Phoenix, I was in Hawaii. I was gone from my home for about 3 weeks. But I worked 2 of those 3 weeks.
From wherever?
From wherever.
From your company that is based in Paris.
Right. And I'm a Black girl that was born in Memphis, Tennessee, born particularly in North Memphis, which has one of the lowest poverty rates. At one time, it rivaled, the infant mortality rate rivaled countries like Iraq. So I come from humble beginnings. My parents were both first-generation college students.
Okay.
And both of them graduated, but they instilled in me, my brother and my sister, to do the work, to have faith, to not look down on anybody because you have obtained a certain status. Yeah. And so these are values and things that I take with me. At one time, I was on free and reduced lunch. My mom and dad had me at 19 and 20. My mom got food stamps, but they did the work. They worked in ministry. But at the same time, now that they're both gone on, they took care of their business.
Yeah.
So we didn't have to do fish fries or spaghetti dinners to bury them. They left us with a legacy.
Not being funny. That's just
right. That's just being honest.
Making a point. And I'm so on the same page. And yes. Part of why I wanted you to unpack, like, this is work. But if you say you want something, first of all, know what you want. What is it that you want? And my thing is, I believe, and people will say, can you have it all? I think you can have it all, but you need to first define it for yourself, not according to what the people around you have. And then 2, you may not have it all at the same time, but you can get a taste of foretaste of the abundance, that God has for you now. But it's the decisions, to me, that we're making. And today we're talking about employment and the dynamics within human resources. This is a source that keeps our livelihood functioning. Why would you be so careless, I say, in your approach, or let me say not so careless, so loose when it comes to being selective? Just as that employer is as selective in their process, do you meet the minimum? Do you step outside of our required skill set? Do you possess something that we were not even thinking we needed? Like, if the employer is going to be that picky, guess what? You should be that picky as well.
Absolutely.
Point of all this that I just rambled. And I love earlier how you even said, for right now, that wasn't for me. And I think a lot of times I believe we feel pressure to make a decision that's going to carry us to glory. But we are constantly evolving, just like human resources. I have all this data in front of me, and ways in which the workplace will change in the next 10 years. I've got all this stuff in front of me. That means change. So don't feel that you can have a North Star, something that is just so ambitious and outside of what it is that you can do on your own, which I think we all should have that thing that we're shooting for. I think as we're climbing towards that, things will change, things will evolve, and that's okay. Because next week we may take the job with the 50,000 because it's part of the strategy. It's a part of the plan. You had ignorant intentionality around, this is what I want. This is what I'm going after. If that's not what they say, next.
Right.
Welcome. And you're welcome. So
that's the truth.
Yeah. So this is just something I'm quite passionate about, because we put a lot of onus, on our employers in the jobs that we're applying for, while at the same time, I think we have to take some of that load in regards to you, because individuals will say, well, I think I'm thinking about switching my my company that I work for, or the job that I'm doing because I'm just not happy. And I always ask, so what was the percent or the model that was shared in during the interview regarding happiness? And it's always this like, huh? I said, my point exactly. The job isn't meant to make you happy. That was not a part of the job. So it's like, own that,
Right.
not a part of the job. So you better find yourself in a space that you enjoy and that you want to contribute to, but you control some of
That's totally most definitely the truth. And so you have to have that ownership, and that onus is on you to control whatever your narrative is going to be.
Yeah. Now, when we talk about this change, in HR, but also in the workplace, and then by you being global, what's one thing that resonates with you when, like, that's been a challenge when it comes to HR today?
I'm going to say that the challenge has always been and will be people, because people are the whole dynamic of human resources. And so whether or not it's managers that have been put in place that are really incompetent, and sometimes that's the case, where you have an incompetent manager and you have to manage up, or it could be a difficult coworker, always confrontational, tries to sabotage. So there's always a people dynamic. And again, that goes back earlier to having that emotional intelligence, how to figure out where the line mines are and how to, step over them, avoid things, targets, and how can you best deliver value in the environment that you're in? Because at the end of the day, you still want to be able to perform. You still want to be that coffee.
Yeah, changing that. I love that. I love that. Some stats. The great resignation is not over. A recent survey found that 40% of employees are thinking about leaving their jobs in the next 3 to 6 months. Worker retention is more challenging than it was pre-pandemic. The rate of employees voluntarily quitting their jobs is 25% higher than pre-pandemic. Employees' expectations around wellness is changing, according to WorkHuman. Almost 2/3, 65% of workers surveyed report that their approach to wellness has changed over just the last 2 years. Flexibility and work-life balance supersedes financial compensation. That comes from LinkedIn. 40% of Americans said they would look for another job if forced to go back to work full time. That comes from Grant Thornton. Employees want empathetic leaders. Nearly 90% of US workers surveyed said that the empathetic leadership leads to higher job satisfaction, with many looking for empathetic qualities, including trust, openness, and transparency, and follow through. And that comes from Ernst Young. And then company culture matters. A recent analysis found that a toxic corporate culture is 10.4 times more powerful than compensation in predicting a company's turnover. And that comes from MIT Sloan Management Review. People want to be heard, seen, and they want to contribute, but they're not going to do that 80 hours a week. How should companies begin to process? Because these numbers are not going away if we don't cooperate from a corporate side, leadership
side. I think companies need to kind of step back, and I always say numbers don't lie. So the proof is in the data, the proof is in the pudding, however you want to say it. So you have to analyze, if there's a high turnover, if you don't have a great retention rate, all those things will impact your business in order to get your customer, the product to your customer, or provide service to your customer, whatever your company is doing. If you don't have workers to support that, then you can't do the business that you're designed to do. And so I think companies need to step back, develop their leaders so that they can be competent managers. Because there is a saying that people don't lead companies, they lead managers. And so the manager is kind of that first representation of the company on a day-to-day basis. Because that manager should be providing direction and guidance and support, also leading and coaching those employees. So for me, I know it's important and critical to have managers that say, who can be my replacement? And so being able to train the people on your team and see, kind of those diamonds in the rough, and helping them navigate and get those leadership programs and development opportunities, stretch assignments, so that employees can be able to grow. If not, companies are going to suffer.
So you're saying, you're saying the investment that needs to be considered moving forward would be professional development, leadership development, something up in that space.
Yes.
Okay.
And it needs to be for a diverse group of employees. So it needs to be more people that look like Nikki Roach, that look like Necole Jones, that are sitting at the table. And a good way to analyze that is companies need to look at what their customer base is. So if people like you and I are buying your products, you need to have workers there that look like you and I. And so it's a whole plethora of diversity that needs to occur. So it's not just gender, it's not just race, it's people of different abilities, veterans. So all those things need to happen to come into play.
I am so glad you brought this up, and that's why I'm reiterating, because with corporations, even higher ed institutions, we fail to realize that while you have individuals in leadership, things are constantly changing, and you want your leaders, your managers, your directors to be knowledgeable. You want them to remain relevant, because as you said, totally agree. This is a representation of who you are and how you show up. These are pieces of the DNA of the organization or institution. How are they showing up? And we need to get past this whole, this is what I do, and I'm not going to let you into what I do, because then you're intimidated that somebody else. But I agree with you. Who's next? Like that's succession planning, but we don't even do it with the C-suite.
Right.
Enough. I'm going to say enough. Whether that's faith-based or not, we need to be more invested in the future, because we're talking about sustaining. No one starts a company, a church, a higher ed institution to close it after you're done. No, it should be continuous. And I'm like, but then also don't look at it as if someone is taking your place. You're built, that's legacy for you.
Right.
And it's just so amazing that usually this is usually the first line, the budget line that's cut.
Yes.
We're talking about developing other people, or the last thing that we think of. We think we need to change the product, change the service, change the medicine, make the font larger. It's all the other stuff, but not the people.
Yeah, and the people are your biggest asset. If you think about what's on your P&L, there's not a line that just says your employees. But overall, from a figurative standpoint, people are your biggest asset of any organization. There's intellectual capital that's there, and you need to even just be able to keep that intellectual capital and have that institutional knowledge. Because I think you talked about earlier with the various generations that are in the workplace at one time. This is the first time that has ever occurred. And as the baby boomers and traditionalists, decide to retire, they take that knowledge with them if it's not documented somewhere. So I think it's important that you realize people are your biggest asset. So you certainly have to invest in your people.
Yeah. And it is a gamble, because I know even now, what is the current um, expectancy for individuals on the job with the millennials, Gen Y and Z? Is it 1.5 years?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it changes. So it's not like your mom and my dad or our grandparents where you stayed on a job for 25 years or 30 years. People are going to get more opportunity. Additionally, if you think about it, just even from a simple math perspective, if you're only getting annual increases of 3 to 5%, over the course of the 20 to 30 years you're on one job, the biggest way for you to get an increase is to go to another job. And I'm just, being honest.
That is true.
So you're going to get anywhere from a 10. I've actually seen people upwards getting 50% salary increases. Things are happening now, where you're getting an extra $50,000 or $100,000 or doubling your salary. And the easiest way to do that is to go to another job.
And now that you have
it's not going to happen in one company, and you've been there for an extended period of time.
I see this totally different after you just said that. Like the picture you just painted made total sense.
Yes.
You can stay where you are and get that 3%, or you can leave and go somewhere and get 5,000 to 50,000 more.
Right. And if you're doing that every 3 to 5 years, then you have significantly increased your lifetime earnings, as opposed to our parents or our grandparents who only stayed at one job. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with staying at one job. That, that's for some people.
But if you're on, I can see this as a benefit for individuals who are seeking certain things, or if it is that you're trying to make sure that you become financially secure in a greater way than you may be current day. That may be like a 5-year strategy. I can totally see that, because I know the flip side of that is that I know individuals who do stay in their current role, and they may be making, let's just say 75,000, but that job allows them to do their hard work, or to launch their own business. So being able to stay put in this job that gives them 75, they have the benefits, a full total compensation package, but they don't have to work, take work home,
right,
so to speak. So it gives them, so that's a trade-off, if you want to do that, or not. So they stay in that space, but then they transition over, so they're able to leave at 5, like for real, leave at 5 to go do their own business. So it does matter, but it goes back to know what your non-negotiables are and what you want.
Right, and you have to be able to negotiate. Anything's negotiable. So be able to go, back to your manager, your leadership, to say XYZ. I actually did a kind of a career talk for another organization. I was on a panel, and I was able to talk with one of the participants afterwards, and this is several months afterwards. And from that panel, she said she went back to her manager and negotiated remote work, and she was able to get it.
Let me tell you, and it doesn't have to be the negotiation when you are accepting an offer. That was one thing I had learned later in my career. It's been about 10, 12 years ago, but that was later. Like I had worked some many years by the time I'm like, oh, I can negotiate and not be in an official leadership role, because you think it's just for leaders, that's a privilege, but no, it's a privilege for all. And I ended up, I negotiated membership for a professional organization before. I've negotiated a parking spot. I've negotiated a magazine subscription package that was relevant to my job. I have negotiated even space. I negotiated a certificate program with one of the programs that you completed for diversity. I've done that. And those are things, think about things that benefit you, that can carry you farther. And it becomes, like you said, a part of that negotiation, but a part of your whole total compensation package.
Right.
And nothing's too small.
If you happen to leave that job, you're always going to take that certification or professional development with you.
Yeah.
And that might allow you to get your next job, or even if it's not another job, a speaking opportunity on a panel. So there's trade-offs.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then as we begin to wrap things up with our time together for today, what one thing, so you have this platform to convey a message, even though you are already global, but you get a chance to convey a message to all of us in the nick, something to help us in the nick of time. What one message as we move forward would you want to tell us? Let me say the practitioners who are in this.
With practitioners, I would say enjoy what you do and be able to have purpose in doing it. And with that, you're able to change lives and trajectories. And so I always believe in HR. Sometimes people think HR is just about the company, but HR is a total aspect of both the employee, the manager, and we're the conduit, on behalf of the company. And so you're able to influence lives, and you have a total sphere of influence.
Wonderful. And now what about to the applicants?
With applicants, I would say chase waterfalls. So whatever you're desiring for your career, go and chase it. But chase it with intentionality. So if you're looking for your next role or opportunity, go ahead and pull that job description. And I say do kind of a self-analysis and see what you have versus what you don't have. And if you don't have it, go get it. And so that, you could obtain that experience through volunteering on boards, working with other nonprofits. If there's a part-time job, if there's somebody that has their own business, and you are, let's say, wanting to move into HR, well, tell them I'm going to write a policy handbook for you. So these are things that you could use to leverage, your circle to get the experience that you need, that you'll be able to translate and share on a resume as well as in an interview. So chase waterfalls.
So we have to the practitioners, be intentional, and to the applicants, chase waterfalls. Oh, that was beautifully said. Absolutely beautifully said. Necole Jones, I want to thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing your knowledge from the personal sphere, but also from the professional sphere. So I appreciate that. And you have given us some nuggets. I'm even like, maybe there's some, some things I need to go back and negotiate, which, yes, seriously, there are. But thank you so much. If there's anything as we, things move along that we can do on this platform, we are here to support. And we look forward to it next time.
Yes. So thank you for the opportunity. I've enjoyed being here with you. And this interview was certainly in the nick of time.
Yes. Wonderful. I want to thank each and every one of you once again for joining us. Another segment of Conversation in the Nick of Time. I'm your host, Nikki Roach, and it has been a joy. Don't forget, you already possess everything you need to be successful, but it's success as you define it. So go tap in and be great. And as we learned today, according to Necole Jones, chase the waterfalls.